to taking on new clients, right?
Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so I would like Trevor to just share some things about himself before we get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm excited. I got a lot of good stuff for you today. Personal finance stuff. You prepped some good questions for me, and I did a little bit of homework on it too. So, but yeah, thank you for having me. Like Kyra said, I'm a financial advisor. I've been in the business for almost 7 years now. I work through a firm, like independently in a sense, to where I have a company that helps, take the record keeping from my clients' accounts and a lot of support and research. But it's just me. And so, yeah, I mainly provide financial planning advice. I'm a certified financial planner. It's just a designation that I got after my 3rd year in business. That's just to focus on financial planning, personal financial information. So that's part of what I do. That's most of what I do is, that involves having conversations with the people that I work with, prospects, making financial plans, retirement plans for people. And then another part of what I do is investments. So investing people's money for them. That's what I get paid for. So that's the nice part. So yeah, investing other people's money. Most of it's retirement money. So people who are, young. I work with a lot of young people. You have to only be 18 years old to have an account with us, right? So I work with a lot of young people, middle-aged people, pre-retirees, post-retirees, elderly people, all different types. So I manage retirement investments as well, and non-retirement investments, which I think we'll touch on a little bit today.
Mm-hmm.
And then insurance. I have a few lines of insurance that I sell, mainly life insurance. And I didn't actually see that on your checklist, so maybe I'll touch a little bit on life insurance today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's a thing for especially the younger generation on if I need it or not. And so yeah, that's in a nutshell what I do. Like I said, I work for myself, so I'm at home today in my home office, but I have an office in Southeast Grand Rapids over by Forest Hills Foods. And yeah, that's just kind of me in a nutshell. So I don't know if you need any more.
Oh no, that's great. I didn't even know some of that stuff. So that's really cool to hear you talk about those things that you have a well versed knowledge in. And especially in the climate we have right now, it's like, what should I do with my money? Like if you look at the stock market, it's crashing,
I know.
Crypto was down. And interest rates are going up. So it's like it's kind of scary times, but hopefully you'll give us, maybe a small plan so we can just not be so nervous and have a little bit of a direction.
Yep, absolutely. So, and yeah, I totally side with you. That's where the bulk of the work that I do comes from. Like right now, people aren't so, concerned with investing more money, to be honest with you. They're concerned about, well, how is my money doing now, right? So I've had many conversations over the last couple of months, honestly, about just that stock market volatility, interest rates, those sorts of things. So I'm very well prepared for that. And as of the beginning of this recording here, the stock market just entered what we call bear market territory, which is a 20% loss from its peak. And so we'll talk more about that maybe when we get towards the end talking about investing. But the funny thing about times like this is that people mainly call me because they think that they have to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So since the stock market's doing something, I have to do something, right? Mm-hmm. And almost 99% of the time, that's not the case, right? So a lot of what I do is kind of just managing people's emotions about their investments and the decision making around it. So, but yeah, we'll touch on that too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's segue into some of these questions.
Yeah.
Now, one of the questions I have is, what does a realistic budget look like?
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, we have like Dave Ramsey telling us how to budget. Then we have Robert Kiyosaki telling us how to budget. So for you, what does that look like in this recessionary time, bear market? What should we be planning for or budgeting for?
Yep. So that was my first question on here. I want to preface all this with just a simple concept that I tell all the people that I work with too, because that's kind of like, I rearranged your questions to have a certain flow, in my opinion. And so I'll preface that first question with something that I like to call, and everybody knows what this is because we remember it from math class when we were younger, but it's called the order of operations. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pit
right.
boss.
So, yeah, exactly. Right. So that's the order of operations for math. And so to me, there's an order of operations when it comes to finance. And I'm just going to go through it real quick. It's just a five-step process, just like PEMDAS, right? And so this is the order of operations. The first thing is emergency savings. You must have an adequate emergency savings before you do anything. And so we'll talk maybe a little bit about what that might look like for each person. It might depend on who you are and what your life situation is like, but that's the number one thing is emergency savings, having money saved up for emergencies. Number two is debt repayment. We're going to talk a little bit about that on here, I know. So debt repayment is the second thing. The third thing to me is retirement savings. So once you've got an emergency savings built up, you're effectively reducing the high interest debts that you have. Now it's on to retirement savings. After retirement savings, we talk about short-term goal savings, right? So it may not be for retirement. Yes, I want to save money, but it isn't just for retirement. I want to buy something in 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and I know I'm going to need to save for it, right? So that's short-term goal savings. And then the last one is like other investments or additional debt repayment. So once I've done all those things previously, I have an emergency savings. I'm effectively paying off my debts. I have an adequate retirement savings. I'm saving for some of the short-term goals that I have. And now I still have more money. What do I do with it? And that's where we talk about other investments and maybe even some further debt repayment. So that's just a little order of operations for anybody that's looking for a simple plan on where their extra money should go. And to perfectly segue into that, let's talk about what a realistic budget looks like. And so budgeting is it's the funniest thing when it comes to the people that I work with, because I am not the type of person or advisor that is going to tell my clients where they need to be spending their money. And it's really just because who am I to tell them that, right? Like,
right?
All of a sudden, you hire a financial advisor to tell you what to do with the money that you have, right? And so, I really do, I dive into people's budgets when I think it's necessary, or if they think that it's necessary. And a lot of times, to be honest, when you're working with a financial advisor, that's usually because you do have the capacity to invest and you don't normally have budgeting issues, right? Like if you are capable of investing, chances are you're really solid on your budget. And so, like you said, there's many different ideas on what a budget looks like. And so like I have my personal thoughts on how a budget should be spent. And then, I know that there are others, but I'll just go with what I have here. And I've got a couple points on budgeting in general. So for me, it's a 70-20-10. Right? So 70% of what you earn should be spent on your needs, right? Needs are
bills.
Yeah, everything like that, right? Literally everything, pretty much, right? Like those are things that you need, necessities, right? And I say 20% on savings, right? So 20% on savings. So 10% of that 20%, it's a rule of thumb, needs to be going towards retirement. Right. So 10% of what you earn should be going towards your retirement. And that's just a rule of thumb for investing. So of that 20%, 10% into retirement savings, and then the other 10% into that, like I told you, the emergency savings and that short-term goal savings, right? Because yes, retirement is important. It's down the road, but some people out there listening might have children on the way, or an upcoming wedding, right? Or a home that they're planning on purchasing, right? And like that, right. Not everybody just has the money available to make those purchases, right? So those are some of the savings goals. So 70% on necessities, 20% on the savings, split between 10 for your emergency and short-term goal savings, 10 for your retirement savings. And then I say the next 10%, the last 10% is on things that you want, the fun stuff. And that kind of segues into the next question that you have too. So maybe we can knock that one out here.
Yeah, I just want to go back and ask you a question for those who are not like aware, like what technically right now is the age of retirement? Has it changed, or like are we still looking to retire like I think in our 60s, right?
Yeah, so The Social Security Administration has what they call normal retirement age, right? Okay. And so for people that are our age, Kyra, that is age 67. Okay.
Wow.
67. Right. And so
It seems so
I know,
far away.
I know, right? And you're like, I just want to make it to 67, let alone
Right?
work, right? So I get that. I do. Um, Most everyone that I work with has a goal of retiring before then, right? And
Okay.
so, yep. And it's my goal for my clients. And I mean, I just don't force the goal on them, but I want to
Yeah.
help them retire as soon as possible, right? Like, of
If
course,
I'm like 44, I want to retire when I'm 44.
yeah, right. And so, like that is a possibility. People might think that that's crazy, right? But that is a possibility. It comes down to how much money are you saving, right? Like how, when are you capable of no longer earning income anymore and having the money that you save pay for all of your expenses, right? And it's different for everyone, of course. And so another number, like age number to look at, is a lot of people think 62 is a good number. So 67 is what they call the normal retirement age, right? 62 is the age in which you can first collect Social Security income. So we all pay into Social Security taxes, and we're building the Social Security income for our future retirement. And so the first age in which you're able to collect Social Security is 62. So some other people make that as a benchmark for, I'm going to retire at 62. Once I can start taking my Social Security, I'm going to need it because I'm not going to be making money anymore, right? And then another number is 59 and a half. I know that's a weird one, but that is the age in which you no longer have to pay a penalty for taking money out of your retirement accounts. And so, yep. So a lot of people will wait to that date because if they do take money out of some types of the retirement accounts before 59 and a half, they get hit with a 10% penalty. And don't ever do that unless it's considered a major hardship. And major hardships are bankruptcy, high medical bills, and those sorts of things. Buying a new car is not an emergency. And yeah, unfortunately, and, paying for something, fun or, even that, they make loans for those sorts of things, right? So you can get a car loan, you can get a student loan, right? You can get all different types of loans. And so, having to pay that 10% on taking your money out early, it's really never beneficial for you unless it's a major, major hardship in life, right? So yeah, let's go back. I want to go back to budgeting too, because there's a couple points that I want to make on budgeting in general. And a couple things that I think might be helpful too. So the number one thing to me about budgeting is that you need to have a tool to do so. And it's so easy to have a tool. If you have online banking or mobile banking with any bank that you have, they keep track of your expenses. Like, there's a full ledger of all the stuff that you spend money on. Some people bank at multiple banks, and I know it can be difficult to put the full budget together of all the things that you spend money on. There are financial tools available online to kind of just, one of them is called eMoney. No one has access. Yeah. I was just going to say, no one has access to eMoney. It's a financial advisor tool. I give my clients access to it, and we make a budget through it, right? So if they have like 3 bank accounts at 3 different banks and a bunch of credit cards that are at different places, then I can just pull in all of those bank accounts and credit cards, and it'll give me this nice, clean budget of all of my clients' expenses. And so number one thing about budgeting is that you must have a way to keep track of it. If you can't answer the question, how much money do you spend per month, there's an issue there, in my opinion. So budgeting tool, number one thing, and I guess number 1B, if that's 1A, 1B is that you should never spend more money than you make. And it is a very, very simple thing, right? Yeah.
I can't just use a credit card.
Yeah. Well, that's the next thing on here. How much debt is too much debt, and how much, those sort of things. So we'll get to that. And so, yes, you certainly can use a credit card. Credit cards can be very beneficial, but they can also be very, very detrimental at the same time too. And so we will talk a little bit more about that as well. So budgeting, like I said, 70 necessities, 20% savings, 10% wants. And so people might think only 10% on wants. Like, okay, if you make $50,000 a year, that's $5,000 on things that you want. And for math, that's $400 a month on things that you want. Like technically you could take a flight every month if you wanted to, if you were spending 10% on things that you wanted. So it's not that ridiculous. People spend way more than that on the things that they already want anyway. And so, yeah, so for the budgeting, never spending more than you make, budgeting tool. And then here's a couple. So I'm a penny pincher, obviously. I'm a financial advisor, but also my mom is an accountant and she looks at numbers all day, just like I do. And my mom and dad, neither of them went to college, neither of them have a college degree, but they were able to raise my sister and I on, their smaller incomes. They put us through 12 years of private schooling. I played hockey for about 20 years of my life, and that's a ridiculously expensive sport. My sister played, I know, right? And then my sister played every sport under the sun, and so those are expensive. And my parents were able to pay for all of those things and get us all the way through college. And they both retired early. My dad retired at 55, my mom retired at 60, and not everybody can do that. And I think the number one reason why they were capable of doing that is because my mom was just so frugal with the money that we had. So when I was younger, we went to the grocery store with my mom, my sister and I. If we wanted something, like if we wanted to get something that wasn't on my mom's grocery list, the only way that we were allowed to get it is if she had a coupon for it.
Oh my goodness, she was a coupon lady?
Coupon clipper, had the full coupon book with a little shuffle through, right? Wow. Okay. And so couponing is the number one thing that I want to talk about when it comes to budgeting, because take this with a grain of salt, but what I'll say is that you should never pay full price for something. And I mean, take it with a grain of salt, because I totally get that there are certain things that you have to pay full price for. I don't get to pay discount on my auto payment, right? Like I got to make the car payment. I get that, right? But some of my biggest things are grocery shopping and online shopping. So grocery shopping is a number one thing. Every single person, no matter where you live, gets coupons, books mailed to them in the mail weekly, right? So that's one way that you can go and find some coupons. Personally, I shop at Meijer. I know a lot of West Michigan people do. Meijer is the greatest. Number one, M-Perks. If you don't have M-Perks and you're shopping at Meijer, you're just doing it wrong. And yeah, Meijer, I mean, I could pull my M-Perks app up, but I think on average I save about 20% from shopping at M-Perks. And
the best feeling is when you get that, like you check out and it's like, hey, $7 towards your basket.
Right.
That's the best feeling.
That's what I'm saying, right? And so, I mean, I buy everything at Meijer, really. Like they got clothes in there too. Like I bought shoes and clothes from Meijer before, right? Like all my toiletries, any home good and stuff like that. Shit, I mean, I've been to a lot of weddings in previous years. Like I'll buy wedding gifts and stuff like that for people, right? Like all types of stuff.
Quality stuff, for sure.
I know it is. And so the M-Perks, it gets you 4% cash back. And so that's really solid, 4%. You don't get that on most credit cards. So M-Perks is a really, really big thing. The second thing for budgeting is an app. It's a web browser app. So it's not like an application on your phone. It just attaches to Chrome, Google Chrome, but it's called Honey. If you've ever heard of Honey before. Yeah.
I have, and I use it.
Yeah, I use it every time. I mean, I shop on Amazon like crazy. I know a bunch of people do. But Honey is a web browser app that automatically, when you get to the checkout screen, it will search the entire internet for applicable coupon codes for your order. And you can just, apply it to your order and you get an immediate discount for doing that. So Honey is one. WikiBuy is another. And then I have one that's just called Capital One Shopping because I have a Capital One credit card too.
You didn't mention Rakuten. You don't use that one?
Say, which one?
Rakuten?
Racketing?
It used to be Ebates.
Oh, Ebates. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's another one. But no, I don't use that one.
You should look into it. It's really beneficial.
Okay, Kyrie, look at me learning something new today. All right.
Hey, if you can help me and my audience, hey, we can help you too.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I will check that out. So yeah, budgeting, and I will just say to kind of like sum up the conversation on budgeting, like I know that everybody's budget looks different. I'm a young single man that doesn't own a house, doesn't have any children. And so I understand that my budget is different than someone who is married and has a big house and has 3 kids in high school. Like I get that. I totally understand that. And so that's where, it goes back to that short-term goal savings. Like if you know that you have children on the way, you need to understand that you need to be saving. And I think the last time I looked, the average cost of a child, that sounds terrible, like you're putting a dollar value to a child, but really,
Hey, they
like it does,
cost.
they
They
do,
do
right?
cost.
Yeah, the average cost of a child here in Grand Rapids is about $15,000 when it comes to, child care and all the additional expenses that come
And
along
is
with
that
that.
from
So,
0 to 18?
yeah, like all through their dependency, I guess. So yeah, $15,000 per child, right? And so if you're not used to that and your budget, like I said, that's where that short-term savings come in. And then also, some people, they'll say, I can't save any more money. I don't spend 10% on any of my wants because I can't, because all and everything that I have goes back to my children and my family and my household. And I get that. And that's very admirable. That's the majority of the United States. I understand that, right? But that brings me back to the point of like, are you spending full price on all of the things that you buy? And if you are, then you got to find ways to spend less simply just on the things that you're already spending, right? And you can cut things out, right? Like if you and your husband or you and your wife just decided not to go to dinner one time a month, that's $50 a month, right? Like that's clearly $50 a month could go, towards a lot of things for you in your life, right? And so it's just those sort of things. Look at every decision, for the money that it may cost you, right? And this is mainly for people who are stressed and uncomfortable with their money situation, right? Like I get there are people out there that can spend freely and do those things, and they should, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anything else there?
No,
Anything
I think we have a lot of good topics. We
Yeah, I
have
know.
how to budget. We talked about I think you said the 70-20-10.
Yep.
And then we talked about ways in which we can save money so we're not spending full price, because no one likes to spend full price on anything. I had a friend have the steward pay her back because she had so many coupons.
Right? No, that's how my mom would be. Should we go buy a bunch of stuff? It'd be like 75 things on the conveyor belt, and then they'd be like, "Oh, it's like $11.26." You're like, what?
Right?
You're like,
Because we
yeah,
want that. We don't want where they're like, hey, we're calling you on the phone. You got 3 days to pay us our money because you have an outstanding balance. So when it comes to having those balances in that debt, like, what do we do once we're there? Because we're talking about how to not get there, but what do we do when we're there? When there's debt looming.
Yep. So I'll combine the two questions, like how much debt is too much debt, and then like, how bad is it if I don't pay my credit card debt every month, right? So I'll like, we'll tackle that all in one here.
Yeah, that's great.
So let's just start with the how bad is it if I don't pay off, or no, we'll start with the how much debt is too much debt. It's a loaded question, because the first thing is that there are good debts and there are bad debts, right? So like your mortgage is considered a good debt, right? And that's because there's a house attached to the mortgage, right? And the house is an asset that has value. And most of the time, especially for people here that live in West Michigan and the greater Grand Rapids area, that asset is appreciating in value, right? So the debt that you have on your home, your mortgage, is a good debt. It's not a bad debt, right? So like your mortgage may be $200,000. Some people's mortgage may be $500,000. So to put a number on it, I don't think is the right way to go, because just because you have a $500,000 mortgage, hell, you might have $1 million house, which means you have $500,000 in equity in your house, which isn't a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are good debts and there are bad debts. The good debts to me are the ones that have an asset attached to them for the most part. So those would be, your mortgage is a pretty good one. Some people have business loans. Like I took out some loans to pay for some things that I needed to do in business, but my business is an asset, right? It's an income producing asset. So for me, that was a good debt. Another good debt could be, it sounds like it may not be, but student loans. And we're going to touch on this too, but like you get an education for your student loans, and you get to use that education and that degree, hopefully, for a job. or maybe a better job, or maybe a promotion at your company, right? So like, those may not be considered bad debts if you're actually using your degree and using that knowledge to make more money, right? And so bad debts are the ones that don't have an asset attached to them, and except for one, auto loans, right? So like your car, unfortunately, doesn't increase in value, right? So everybody needs a vehicle. I understand that. So car loans, they're a bit tricky. Usually a car loan has a pretty low interest rate along with a mortgage as well, because it's a pretty common thing. And so yeah, your auto loan is considered a bad debt simply because the asset that's attached to the loan is depreciating too, right? And so, and then another bad debt, and we'll continue to talk about this too, is credit card debt, right? Credit card debt is the worst kind of debt there is. And so before I jump into the credit card debt, the things I'll say about just debt in general, and so like how much debt is too much debt, there's no such thing as too much good debt, in my opinion. If there's, if there's an asset attached to it that's appreciating in value, then it's never too much, in my opinion. But in terms of a bad debts, how much debt is too much bad debt? That's what we'll talk about. That's what we'll talk about here, because to me that is credit card debt. How much credit card debt is too much debt, right? And so for the good debts, what I think the method is that you should make the minimum payment on your good debts, right? So for a mortgage, everybody has a mortgage payment, right? So my thought is that you should just make your mortgage payment. I don't think, first of all, don't pay any less, obviously, but I don't think you need to pay any more, because in my opinion, it's a good debt. And even though it's got an interest rate to it that you need to pay off, the value of the home is appreciating, and you may be earning more in appreciation value of the home than you're actually paying in the interest on the home. And so for me, it's just make your mortgage payment, and I don't think you need to do anything more than that, right? Same thing with your auto loan. I don't think, you could potentially pay more on the auto loan, you could potentially pay more on your student loans, those sorts of things. But I think for the good debts, it's smart to just make your minimum payments on it and write out that debt plan, whether it's a 5-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 10-year plan. And so that's my take on good debts. So for the bad debts, you need to have a payment plan. And we'll talk about that when we talk about credit card debt, because we'll talk a little bit about what that plan might look like. And so credit card debts are the worst debts. So we'll talk a bit about credit card debts here. Why they're so bad is because, one, they have the highest interest rate. I mean, a normal credit card, sometimes people get cards with interest rates as low as 10%, but they're usually not that low. You're looking more towards 15 to 20 plus percent on the interest. Yeah. So for the most part, yeah, I know. It's just, it's too much. And, the bad part about that interest is it's just accruing on money that you spent, right? So, I took on some credit card debt early on in my career because I needed to pay for things for my business, right? And so for me, that credit card debt was okay at the time because I was investing in my business with that money. And so I was getting some sort of other return than just, spending the money on the card. And so there are other credit card debts that accrue because people are spending too much money, right? And that's the type of debt that we're going to talk about. So how much credit card debt is too much debt? Any amount is too much, in my opinion. And so if you are the person that's already in the situation in which you have credit card debt and you've had it for a while, it's revolving balance, you're trying to make the payments and you're trying to figure out, how you're going to be able to make the payments on time and when you're going to be able to pay this thing off. The first and number one thing about having credit card debt is that if you have revolving credit card debt, you do not use the card, period. If you have credit card debt and it's revolving, you stop using the card. And it's mainly because how do you plan on paying the card off if you keep putting more money on it, right? Like that's actually the worst way to pay it off, is to put more money on it. So the first thing, stop using it. And people are like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for things then? It's like your debit card. Everybody has one of those too, right? And it can be scary. I get it, but you only use your debit card for the things that you know you have the money for, right? And if that's the case, then that's exactly how you need to treat your credit card debt situation. You use your credit card the person who has revolving credit card debt uses their credit card because they don't have enough money to pay for it, right? And so, using a credit card, the benefits that you get from using a credit card do not outweigh the negatives that you get from a credit card at all, right? Like, yes, you are building credit by having a credit card, and having good credit allows you to get good interest rates on new loans that you're going to take. But if you're in debt, you're paying interest, and that cost of interest is far greater than any benefit that you're going to receive from using your credit card. So for the number one thing, how bad is it if I pay off my credit card, or if I do not pay off my credit card every month? It's the worst thing you can do. Not really, but I think it's up there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's up there, really. And so, yeah, like I said, if you have credit card debt, the first thing you need to do is stop using a credit card. You can't be using it anymore, just simply because you're going to be putting more money on the card. How do you expect to pay it off if you continue to put more money on it, right? The balance is never going to go anywhere. So that's the number one thing. Number two, and I also want you to take this with a grain of salt because there are some stipulations of doing this. But a second thing is, I think you need to make a plan on paying off the credit card debt. So whoever out there is listening and has credit card debt, the first thing to do is figure out how much you have, right? So let's say you got $5,000 worth of credit card debt, right?
Woo.
Yeah, I know it'd be a lot, right? So let's say you want to pay it off in 12 months. Well, by simple math, that means you have to pay a little bit over $400 a month on your credit card to pay it off in 12 months, right? And so that'd be a plan, right? Clearly, a plan to pay your credit card off. And the money is actually going to be a little bit more because the whole time you'd be paying, you're going to be accruing more interest on it too, right? So it might be a little bit more. It might be closer to like $425, the payment. And so if you have a payment plan, if you come up with a plan and the one that you feel like you can stick to, what a good thing you can do is a balance transfer. Have you ever heard of a balance transfer before?
No, I haven't actually.
Yeah, so a balance transfer is literally transferring the balance of your credit card from the one that it's on to another card, right? So it's like refinancing your student loans. So let's say you have a credit card with Capital One and you're going to do a balance transfer. The whole balance of what's on your Capital One card would be transferred over to your Bank of America credit card. So Bank of America will pay off your entire credit card for Capital One, and then now you have a new balance with Bank of America. And the reason why that's nice is because normally when you do that, the new company that you're transferring your balance to will give you a period of time in which you do not have to pay interest. So let's just say it's a 12-month period. So you do a balance transfer from your Capital One card to your Bank of America card, and it's $5,000. Now, if you still had it at Capital One, it'd be $5,000 plus 20% each year, right? So that 20% is actually $1,000. It really costs you $6,000. And so instead, you could balance transfer to the Bank of America card, put the $5,000 on the Bank of America card, get 0% interest for 12 months, and then it really only costs you $5,000 for the first 12 months, right?
So do you have to ask someone to do this, or like, is this just a thing anyone can do?
Anybody is eligible for it. And it really just is contacting a new credit card company. So if you have an existing credit card, you just contact a new credit card company and say, hey, I have another credit card loan. I want to balance transfer my balance from that card to your company. And the person will help you facilitate that for sure. You'll give them, your card information, and they can help you set that up. But my number one thing about the balance transfer is do not do the balance transfer unless you know for certain that you can pay the entire debt off during the period of zero interest. That's it. Because if you can't, what's going to happen is at the end of the period of zero interest is going to kick in, and that interest rate is going to be really high. It's going to be like 25%, sometimes even 30%, right? And that is a ridiculous amount of interest to pay. So it can be helpful to do the balance transfer because it forgives you of paying interest for a certain period of time, but it can also be very, very detrimental if you do not pay it off during that time period. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, I guess I'd say, but it's a great option for anybody that's struggling and is in credit card debt right now. So just to recap, having credit card debt is okay, but the number one thing is, one, if you do have revolving credit card debt, stop using the card until it's paid off, right? And that, to me, that's going to teach you something far more important than the money that it's going to save you, right? It's going to teach you that I should only spend the money that I have, and I shouldn't spend any money that I don't feel like I have, right? Personally, I put every single thing that I buy on my credit card. I don't use my debit card for anything other than taking money out of the ATM when I need to.
Same, gotta get those points.
Right? You get those points, you get those rewards, you're building really good credit. I bet your credit score, Kyra, is very high. It makes you very credit worthy. You could go get a great interest rate.
I'm trying to get that 800 one day.
That's what I'm saying, right? And so am I, but people think that they're doing the same thing when they have revolving credit card debt, but that's not the case. Like, people may, there might be people out there that are just like you and I that use their credit card for everything and get all the rewards and all that stuff, but they keep a balance on the card and they don't pay it off all the time. Oh, I just got your email. I'll be quick. So, those people, they're not receiving the benefits of having a credit card. Like, they're having to pay interest, and that costs them money. And it doesn't build their credit as much as we're building our credit by, paying off the full balance. And so, that's really the situation you want to get into. Using your credit cards to the tune of being able to pay off your full statement balance, every single month. Every time that statement balance comes, you want to get into the position to pay that off too. And there are some more in-depth budgeting tips and tools that I can go through too, but I think I'll be a little bit speedy because we've got some important things at the end here, I know. So,
no worries.
So next thing on here is paying for student loans. We're talking about debt again. I know everybody and their brothers got student loans. And so the thing about student loans is, this is my opinion, by the way, I don't think they're going anywhere. So to anybody out there that thinks that they're going to be forgiven, I wouldn't assume that. And
that
so
$10,000, maybe.
What's that?
You think there's a possibility of getting that $10,000 cleared off?
Do I think there's a possibility? Yes. Do I think that it's the right thing to do for the United States? No. We just forgive too much debt in our country. And it's like, well, someone's owed the money, right? And if you just forgive that and that all goes away, there's an imbalance there, in my opinion. And so it's a nice thought. I just don't think that it's going to happen. And so since I don't think it's going to happen, here's a nice little plan on how to pay it back. And so the number one thing about student loans is right now they're in forbearance. So everybody who's got private student loans, not public student loans, but everybody who's got private student loans, government loans, they're not currently accruing any interest. And so you may not have been paying them off because you don't have to. I know that. But it's the best thing you can do right now is start paying them off. And it's because all of the money that you're paying towards the loan is going to go straight to the principal of the loan, and none of it will be paid back for interest. So to me, if you're out there and you're not making payments on your student loans, I think that you should, because they're going directly towards the principal of the loan right now. Mm-hmm. And I also say that because I don't think that they're going to be forgiven, to be completely honest with you. So if you're the type of person that does, just know that I said that. No, I'm kidding. But so a second thing with student loans is that there's two types of payment plans, valid, in my opinion, payment plans. One of them is just the 10-year repayment plan. Everybody enters this plan whenever they finish school, in a sense. So you don't have to start paying on your loans until you finish school. So as soon as you finish, there's a 6-month period afterwards, and then your loans start kicking in, right? So that payment plan, the first payment that you see, that minimum payment, is a 10-year repayment plan. And I think that that's a valid thing. I know that some people have some super high student loans, right? And so, and that's okay. I get that too. Like, not
Yeah,
everybody
mine
was
are up
afforded.
there.
What's that?
I said mine are up there.
I
Yeah.
know. I
And
know.
I didn't even know about the grace period. So I was like,
Yeah.
you living my life. Oh, here is a bill. What? So
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think you still did the right thing though, Kara. I think you still should have continued to pay him off, just because I'm in the camp that thinks you're not gonna have it, which is okay.
I have. And listening to Dave Ramsey, he was like, you can either do like the debt snowball, or I forget the other one.
Yeah.
Where for me, I don't pay like on my total loans. I pay on the one with the most interest.
Yep.
So, because like whenever this thing like kicks in, I'd rather have less principal with the most interest than having, you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely. Yep. No, I know. And that snowball method is a great method. And what she's referring to is you tackle the highest dollar amount debt with the highest interest percentage first. That's the first thing you do, because once you pay that off, the number one thing from it, like, there's a technical reason, but the number one thing from it is the satisfaction that you get from doing that. You're like, holy shit. Oh, sorry if maybe I wasn't supposed to swear, but
no,
you're like, wow.
Go ahead.
You're like, wow, I just paid off a $15,000 loan. It makes you feel so good. And then you're in the mood to like pay more, right? But then also that $15,000 loan had this huge monthly payment that you had to make, right? It could have been $400 or $500 a month. All of a sudden that's gone. So now you and your budget have an extra $400 or $500. That's where the snowball method comes in. Then you can snowball that into the next one. So instead of paying the $100 a month you were doing on your second debt, now you get to do $500 a month on it, or $600 a month on it, and then it just kind of snowballs until they're all gone. So perfect. That's the exact method. And then real quick, I'll just quickly touch on this because it's a thing. Other than the 10-year repayment plan for loans, there is forgiveness programs. So like I said, I don't think that the federal government is just going to forgive all loans, maybe partially, who knows, something. But there are actual real forgiveness programs. So if you work, and it's mainly just for nonprofit organizations. So there are tons of nonprofit organizations out there that you can get a job with that will qualify you for a forgiveness program. Meaning, if you work for a nonprofit, a qualified nonprofit organization, then they will, after 10 years, pay off all of your student loans. And so take that one with a grain of salt. Just because it's not like I would want someone to go work for a nonprofit company simply to get their student loans forgiven. That's not really what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But some people do. And some people have that opportunity. So that's another one as well.
That's great.
So let's stop talking about the bad stuff. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Yeah. And that is, how soon do I not need to start saving for retirement, right? And so now we'll talk about saving for retirement, investing in general, outside investments, and things like that. And so disclaimer is back to the order of operations. If you don't have an emergency savings, if you're not successfully paying off your debts, you don't invest for retirement. You don't, and that's me. That's my perspective, right? Some people do, some people don't, but that's just my perspective. So when you are in the situation, how soon do I need to start saving for retirement? And for me, the answer is as simple as soon as you start making money. So whenever you're making money, that's when you need to start saving for retirement. When I say making money, it's not just earning money. Making money means saving money. So, when you're, like I was making money when I was in high school, obviously, but I wasn't saving any of it because I didn't make a lot and I spent it on the things that I wanted when I was a kid. So that's not really what I'm talking about. But you graduate college and you get your first big boy job or big girl job or whatever that is. That's exactly when you need to start saving for retirement, right? The most important reason why is because of compound interest. And I hope everybody knows what that is. If you don't, research what compound interest is. You should know what it is because everybody has debt, and compound interest works in the reverse. It can work for you, it can work against you. It can work against you if you have, if it has credit card debt, compound interest is not working in your favor. But if you have investments, compound interest is working, right? And that's the biggest reason why, you start early. You just have more compound interest power than the person that starts later. I touched on it a little bit earlier. There's a rule of thumb for retirement is that you need to be saving 10% of your income towards retirement, right? So if you make $50,000, then you need to be saving $5,000 a year towards your retirement. And so I'm going to move on to the next question because we'll talk a little bit more about retirement and investing through that one too. So the question here was, should I participate in the employee match contribution? And so just to preface all of it, first thing I'll say is if you're capable of it, right? So like I've said before, if you don't have an emergency savings and you're struggling with the debts that you need to pay off, then you do not need to take advantage of your 401k. Those things take precedence in my mind over the 401k. But if you are in a situation where you have a 401k, you feel like you should have the money to put in there, you should always, 100% of the time, get the full match from your employer. No questions asked. I tell all my clients that.
You want all that money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's free money. Literally, it is. No one else is giving you any free money. I'm not going to give you any free money when I invest it for you. So